Namaskar, Nilay Shok here. Today, I will continue with our series on Draupadi Vastraharan, and this will be part 4. If any one of you have not seen the previous 3 parts, I would ask you to stop this episode, go back to the previous 3 parts, and then continue with this part. I will summarize the first 3 parts briefly. In the first part, we went through all the relevant evidence from the Sabha Parva of Mahabharata, the game of Adyuta, how Yudhishthir lost himself and each of his brothers, and of course, before that, all of his wealth, including the kingdom. Finally, he puts Draupadi as a wager in the game of Dyuta and loses that too. You can go back and listen to part 1 for the details, but eventually Draupadi is brought to the court and Duryodhan, Karna encouraged Dushasan to snatch away the Vastra of Draupadi. He goes to do that, and I would again encourage you to watch part 1 and understand the details. There is a specific reason why I am not repeating those details. Because some of the details that, or some of the descriptions or the narrations that I want to show with tremendous additional evidence of Mahabharata, that there appears to be some interpolation there, especially possibly a couple of lines, but that has made all the difference. And so I don't want to emphasize and re-emphasize the part that I want actually people to eventually understand as interpolation. In part 2, some additional aspects related to that incidents were discussed. And in part 3, outside Sabha Parva, there is one stray reference in Shalya Parva. This is after Bhim killed Duryodhan. And in that context, Bhim refers to this incident of Draupadi being brought into the Kaurava court and a possible attempt at Vastraharan. So at least because there was a mention of it, I wanted to refer to that reference. What does that mean? Besides the stray references within the Sabha Parva, and what are those stray references we will look at when we continue our analysis. Other than that, there is only one additional place, that is Shalya Parva, where somewhat indirect, but at least explicit in some sense reference to Vastraharan has been made. Now that we continue with part 4 and future parts, I want to show the evidence from the Mahabharata text, where even when the mention of this particular event occurs, there is no explicit or even indirect reference to Draupadi Vastraharan. So let's look at that. After Sabha Parva incident, there was another round of Adyuta. If you know this, great. If not, every reason to read Mahabharata in the original. Of course, with appropriate translation. But now Pandav have to leave Hastinapur and go into Vanavas. So these descriptions of Pandavas when they are in Vanavas are narrated through the Vana Parva. So we are going to refer to a certain reference from Vana Parva in this part 4. Just for keeping everyone grounded, I have the map here at the top. So Sabha Parva is where this supposedly the incident of Vastraharan occurred. and now Pandavas are in Vanavas. They are in the Vana. One of the instances that is described is the conversation between Sanjay and Dhritarashtra occurring after this Sabha incident, but when the Pandavas are in the Vanavas. Let's look at the specific references. Okay. This is from Vanaparva, Gita Press edition 49, Adhyay. And if you're looking at critical edition, Adhyay 46. Occasionally, I will read the Sanskrit verses, but let me jump into the translation. So Sanjay is telling Dhritarashtra, I am confident that Pandavas are angry because of the fact that Draupadi was brought to the court and the fact Dushasan and Karna said rough things to Draupadi. Now keep in mind, Dhritarashtra is blind. Sanjay is his companion there, always assisting him, conveying information, whatnot, including eventually Bhagavad Gita, the whole uh, descriptions of what's happening on the war field, the battlefield. That's what Sanjay was also telling. But in this case, this is long before the Mahabharata war of 5561 BCE, about what, 14 years before the actual war. So if you have to think of this timeline, think of this as 5561. So if you add, because we are going backwards in a BCE time scale, so that's 5571 and add 4 more. So we are looking at 5575 BCE. That's when this conversation is taking place, approximately. Sanjay tells Dhritarashtra that I'm confident that Pandavas are angry. Angry at what? At the fact that Draupadi was brought to the court and the fact that Dushasan and Karna said rough things to Draupadi. Sanjay does not refer to Vastraharan. If you look at additional descriptions there, again, it's a Sanjay talking to Dhritarashtra. He says, your sons, telling Dhritarashtra, dragged Draupadi to the court and thus have invited an impending war. He also refers to another inserting event there. That's when the Duryodhan showed his thighs to Draupadi and says, Bhima took a vow to break the thighs of Duryodhan. Keep in mind that Duryodhan has taken this shapath 14 years before actually when he broke the thighs of Duryodhan. So his vow is very clear what he is going to do. Okay, just from a factual perspective, because many people don't understand why it was still okay for Bhima to break the thighs of Duryodhan, because he said so, he was going to do it. And he also gave exactly the reason why he was going to do it. Okay, so let's go further. Now I'm going to take these same verses and even pull the translation. I happen to find one place from Marathi translation. Again, the simple reason is just to show you the consistency of translation. Here, again, Sanjay is talking to Dhritarashtra, same shloka. He says, Hey Maharaj, तू दुर्योधनाविषयी जे म्हटलेस ते सर्व सत्य आहे. हे राजन, महाबलाढ्य पांडव आपल्या धर्मपत्नी कृष्णेला म्हणजेच द्रौपदीला अशा निंद्य प्रकारे सभेत नेलेले पाहून अतिशय क्रोधाविष्ट झाले आहेत. त्याचप्रमाणे दुःशासन व कर्ण यांची ती दारुण कर्णकटू व कुत्सित वचने ऐकून पांडव अतिशय संतप्त झाले आहेत, यात संशय नाही. Sanjay also adds, the second portion. हे राजा, दुर्योधनाने सभेमध्ये आपल्या दोन्ही मांड्या द्रौपदीला दाखवल्या असता ज्याचे ओठ स्फुरण पावत आहेत असा भीमसेन असे अर्थपूर्ण वचन बोलला. हे पातक्या, 13 वर्षे पूर्ण होताच कपटद्यूताने आम्हाला जिंकणाऱ्या तुझ्या दोन्ही मांड्यांचा मी भयंकर वेगवान गदेने भेद करीन. If you do look at the translation, the English translation versus Marathi translation, you will find, and I don't have exactly where I pulled this from handy right now, the reference. The Marathi translation is very superior, very much in tune with what is being said in the Sanskrit shlok of the Mahabharata. All right, I think that's all I wanted to say for this part. So immediately after the incident is very fresh on the mind of Dhritarashtra, Sanjay, all the Kauravas. And even then, when Sanjay is talking to Dhritarashtra, immediately after the game of Dyuta, now Pandavas are in the Vanavas, Sanjay does not refer to Draupadi Vastraharan itself. No, he refers to all other critical aspects, such as the fact Dushasan said certain things to her, and so did Karna. Also, the fact Duryodhan showed his thighs, okay, and then in response, Bhimasen took a shapat, okay, promised to break thighs of Duryodhan. So that's all discussion that we all of us are aware of. The discussion happens here, but there is no explicit and direct reference to Vastrahara. With this, we will stop in part 4. When we go to part 5, I will look at additional references. All the additional references that refer to this incident in some fashion, we are going to go through that to emphasize this point that nowhere except whatever I have already covered, there is nowhere reference to Draupadi's Vastraharan. And then, of course, we are going to get into very interesting evidence where there is an explicit reference against Vastraharan. But we have to go through a few parts before we get there. All right. Thank you very much. Keep watching. Namaskar.